Hello, welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be doing my top lane tier list for patch 14.5. If you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. So to begin with, there was a micro patch a couple hours ago. It was only directed at Smolder. There was one yesterday which was directed towards Rek'Sai and Lilia to fix a couple of bugs, but Smolder's was a nerf down as he was performing too well in bot, mid lane, and top lane. The adjustment in top lane has moved him, it moved him from the A tier, where he was at the beginning of this patch, down to the B tier. This is like precautionary. I believe the nerfs will do a decent amount to reduce some of his power. His stacks for E now have been tripled, so it was 50. If you got 50 stacks, you'd gain one more auto on the E. It is now 150 stacks to gain one more auto on the E. Alongside this, it has a bug fix, so because it used to round up, it no longer rounds up on the E, so that is also a nerf to the ability. On top of this, his ultimate CD went down by 10 seconds as well, which is a bit of a nerf, so he's going to find himself within the beta. In the top lane, you tend to see the grasp variants over like the Arcane Comet and PTAs. I believe you can kind of pick around, Fleet, but like, yeah, Fleet, Grasp, Fleet, Grasp, Arcane Comet are all rune trees you can opt into. The Shojin Essence Reaver build is perfectly viable. You tend to go like Shojin, Essence Reaver into Navori, or you can go like the Shojin into Iceborne into Liandry's Torment, which is another variant. There are kind of builds you can opt into depending on the game state, but he is a solid B tier option. He is turbo obnoxious at the moment. I am not a huge fan of the design of this champion. If you hit your 225 stacks, he is still very frustrating to play against. The true damage burn combined with the execute is very irritating to play against and can provide him with a lot of wave clear combined with team fighting and just overall power. But yeah, he's sat within the B tier at the moment. He is a solid option if you are looking for a range pick, considering a lot of them have been nerfed down this patch. On the side of buffs, Jarvan is going to be added to my D tier. I wouldn't recommend playing Jarvan top. He tends to struggle. He has high mana costs. His wave clear isn't great. Like, you can like harass and like poke down the wave using like Q and E, but stepping up can be quite punishing, as you are if you do look to wave clear, you do struggle in duels. On top of this, he tends to fall off. He's not as much of a scaler as a lot of the other top laners. His individual dueling power isn't great. He is more of a setup champion, and overall I would just recommend other picks over him if you're looking for like engage options. He sits within the D tier. Sometimes he comes out as like a counter pick into Kennen. Past this, I wouldn't really recommend him. Wukong is going to be staying within my beta. The changes look like a lot. He had his stack counter reduced from 10 down to 5, and his efficiency on them went up from 50% to 100%. Alongside this, he had a change to... There was one other change, I can't remember off the top of my head. But, yeah, the nerf toward, the change towards his W, the change towards his passive wasn't enough to kind of like put him in a good... Okay, it was stack fall off. I remember now. The stacks now fall off individually, one by one, rather than all at once, which is also a nice buff. Overall, it didn't really do a huge amount. He's still okay against AD matchups. You don't really want to play him into AP matchups, as his passive only has armor value on it, so he does struggle a bit more in those. Overall, yeah, he stays within the B tier. The buffs didn't do a huge amount, so he is still kind of struggling, but he's a fine option. Rek'Sai gonna be within my B tier. So Rek'Sai had a bug fix at the beginning of this patch to allow her W to knock up targets, as it was kind of being... It wasn't being consistent, and there was lots of issues with it. She is in a relatively okay spot now. I'd recommend her as like a B tier option. She has, relative power with her kit. Her team fighting is decent. Her scaling is decent. Her ultimate has a bit more value now, but now that it has been buffed. And of course, she still has the AoE knockup value. She is nerfed for lane though. Her Fury generation is 50% on minions compared to what it used to be, so it's not as rewarding laning compared to like hitting monsters, but you can still dip into the jungle. You can hit Gromp, you can hit Krugs, depending on what side of the lane you're on. I'm not hugely sold on it, but yeah, it's a B tier option. Stridebreaker, Cleaver, Sundered Sky. There might be some sort of ingenious tech, whether you're running like Conks with Domination secondary tree, or Halo Blades, so running Domination primary. That would be like Sudden Impact, Eyeball, Ingenious, and then like a Triumph Alacrity or Triumph Tenacity kind of direction. Overall, you want builds are being refined at the moment, and when we have like this patch's data later on, it'll be a bit more accurate depending on what Rek'Sai should be going. But overall, yeah, Champ's in a solid spot, good B tier option. On the nerf side of things, so Vayne is going to drop all the way down to a B tier. They hit her really hard this patch. The movement speed on her passive going down by 15 makes chasing and just harassing targets a lot harder. Combined with that, her Q went up by 2 seconds CD. This is a lot more punishing towards bot lane Vayne, who tends to opt into maxing W first a lot of the time. This also does hurt those W max lethal tempo Vaynes in the top lane. You are now very much incentivized to go the squishy Essence Reaver, Stormrazor, Essence Reaver, like one-shot kind of build variant, which I wouldn't recommend in all games. It still does have a good spot, but yeah, she definitely took a big hit from this. She is now within the B tier. Most top laners will rejoice, as yes, she is a very frustrating top laner to go against. Twisted Fate also took a big hit. He is also going to be moving down from the B tier. Both Vayne and Twisted Fate were like the premier ranged options last patch. They were both hit quite heavily with nerfs for this. Twisted Fate lost like 50% AD ratio on his, actually it was like 55% AD ratio on his E, and he lost 10% attack speed on his E later ranks as well. Overall, these nerfs did a huge amount to hurt Twisted Fate in the top lane. He is now within the B tier. You're still looking like the AD Twisted Fate variants. The builds haven't really adjusted that much, but he is just a lot weaker. Maokai going to be moving down to B tier, so I should have moved Maokai down last patch. He took a big hit. Well, he took a hit in the top lane from his nerfs. Now that he's been nerfed again this patch, he's not really recommendable as a top lane option. You tend to play him because he is safe and quite hard to punish. I mean, he's just hard to punish. If you're running the likes of Phase Rush in the top lane and his sustain with his passive, then it's quite hard to move him out of lane. But he's lost a bit of damage now. He's lost a bit of movement speed. His cooldowns are a bit longer. And it's just put him in a spot where I wouldn't really recommend him. There are better tanks in the likes of Poppy. Tom Kench is a bit better this patch. Mundo's a bit better this patch, and they tend to be pretty easy champions to play. Volibear is decent. I'm not a huge fan of like the Drain tank Ingenious build, but it does have places where it can function quite well if you are not being primarily targeted. Shen is also in a very good spot. The Heartsteel buffs are quite nice for him. But yeah, Maokai, more of a B tier option. Zac is going to... Zac, of course, is the other primary tank option, who I forgot to mention. But yeah, Zac has moved down into the S tier. He didn't get hit too hard. They weren't intending to hit him too hard. They wanted to keep jungle fairly relevant. So they went lightly. The W damage went from 35 to 95. Well, yeah, 35 to 95 to 40 to 80. So nerfed if you put points in this ability. I believe he is still maxing W in the top lane. I could be wrong with this, but... as you do need it for wave clear, and it is on a very spammable short CD, you still do kind of value it. But yeah, overall, it's been a bit of a hit. He now finds himself in the S tier. He's still a solid tank option, still has a lot of sustain, and still has decent value, just not as blindable, as strong as before. Moving on, so Yorick took a hit this patch. Unfortunately finds himself within the B tier now. He lost 10% of the damage on his skills when you hit a target with your E. He gained a bit of resistance on Maiden at the cost of losing her like AoE 50% damage reduction. Overall, it was actually a decent hit towards him. He now finds himself within the B tier. Not as strong as before, but still a solid low elo pick, especially as you go down the ranks. Making its way into my S tier though is Gragas. Gragas is very strong at the moment. He is very hard to move. He does really strong amounts of damage. His build is very good at the moment. You're looking at something like the Roa variant where you can go like Roa Cosmic Drive, I believe, as being very strong on Gragas. On top of this, Lichbane also works quite nicely on him, even though it has been nerfed. You can opt into Grasp if you are looking for a bit more durability, but there is still power in running the likes of Phase Rush into like Darius and Olaf. You can also run Arcane Comet if you're looking for a bit more harass on those Qs, and you're looking to opt into a bit more AP. But yeah, Gragas, very strong AP option. The one I'd recommend in the top lane at the moment. On top of this, Argot's going to move up into the S+ tier, so I was kind of hesitant with moving Argot up. it was I was kind of like looking to see where everything else would land. But yeah, he's very strong at the moment. Hullbreaker, it works really well with him and his W. If you're doing the 4 autos toggle on the W, and then like you're autoing to get full value out of that Hullbreaker, he is an S plus champion. If you don't, I wouldn't recommend him as much. He's more like an S tier champ, but yeah, if you're getting that consistency down, he tears through towers, he tears through champions. His build's really good with Cleaver getting buffed as well. You're looking at something like, yeah, the Hullbreaker, Cleaver, Starrick, Jack Show into Deadman's or Force of Nature, and he works really well with that build. You can opt into PTA or Fleet. It is more person dependent, but like, yeah, Fleet really nice for chase and sustain. PTA good for damage and nice for trading as well. So yeah, there's lots of power there. He kind of sits alongside Olaf, who I'm not quite moving up to the S plus tier, but Olaf is like the premier S tier option for like a bruiser at the moment. I keep just moving people slowly up above Aatrox, even though Aatrox is still a great option. He's being changed next patch. They have said it themselves, but yeah, Olaf, great pick. Works really nicely with Stridebreaker. I'd really recommend going this item on him. He can still opt into things like Sundered Skies like a second option. At this point, Starrix is well known for being a really solid second option as well. If you're looking for a bit more tenacity, the shield allows you to be a very solid frontline option. But yeah, solid S tier pick. Definitely like the premier close to S plus being OP pick. But yeah. Lots of value there. Moving on, so Azir is going to move up into my S tier. This is like the Grasp tanky build Azir, where you're like opting into the Liandry, Frozen Heart, Bissell kind of version. There is lots of power to it. I wouldn't recommend it every game. Sometimes you do want to go like the Fleet Nash's Tooth, like primary AP damage variant. But if you're looking for a bit of durability with a champion which still output a lot of damage, then yes, the Grasp, Liandry, Force of Nature, Abyssal build is still there. Even though Force of Nature, Frozen Heart has been nerfed, it is still a solid option. Yeah, you can still opt into it if you do want it. And then I believe you would like wrap it out with like a Rift Maker. To make value of like a large pool of health you have built into. Jax is going to move up into the S tier. So Jax was really hit quite badly by like the popularity spike of Alawi. He performs really badly in that matchup, but now Alawi has kind of like fallen down in popularity and has been nerfed a bit. He's not struggling as much. He is his one kind of like big problem at the moment is just the strength of Argot at the moment. Even though Jax can functionally play the matchup, Argot can just overwhelm it and can make it quite hard. So yeah, be aware of that. But yeah, Jack's solid S tier option. And dropping out the S tier is Singed. He's just taken tags over time. He got nerfed on the first day of the patch, and then we saw follow-up nerfs to Riftmaker. And as other champions have gotten stronger over time, he kind of just drops down a tier. He's still a solid pick, though. I just wouldn't recommend him as highly as, like, Gwen, Azir, Cassiopeia, Mordekaiser for his simplicity. Zac does a lot of AP. And Gragas, like, the primary AP option. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. See you next one. Goodbye.